Video games as works of art. A divisive topic that's challenged both critics and gamers alike. As games evolve to use advanced technology and tell sophisticated stories, we can't help but wonder, does that bring games closer to their true status as an art form, or further away? We answer this question today once and for all by weighing two great games. In this corner, the timeless arcade classic Pac-Man, and in the other, the 2013 critical darling, The Last of Us. Two very different games, each bringing something very different to the table. But which one is the better work of art? Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, welcome to DeadLock.
The Last of Us is easily one of the most evocative games ever made. Every aspect of it, from its writing to its visual design, is a loving artistic creation, and I say that because I love this game.
Well, it's easy to be wowed by the latest and shiniest, but in the history of video games, Pac-Man is a pure expression of gaming and tremendous cultural and historical significance. It is one of the most iconic arcade games in history, and it's played all over the world even to this day. Pac-Man truly is a work of art.
Look, with all due respect to the granddaddy of video games, Pac-Man is just Pac-Man. The Last of Us is our best glimpse into the future of video games as a storytelling medium. It has incredible characters and a touching narrative. And with its great performances, The Last of Us may be the first game to pose the question, which had better performances, the movie or the game?
Okay, yeah, if we're using the argument of artistic video games also having movie adaptations, let's not forget Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Truly a cinematic masterpiece there, my friend.
That's a low blow. I mean, come on, the first one is probably one of the better video game movies out there.
It was okay. It had a good song. But I won't dispute that The Last of Us is a great video game. It is, perhaps one of the best video games in recent years. But a great example of games as art? I don't think so. Sure, it has great music and cutscenes, but those are just stacked on top of the actual game. That doesn't make the game into great art any more than playing Beethoven while you're reading a phone book turns the phone book into great art. The Beethoven is the art. The phone book, not so much.
Oh, come on. What does that have to do with The Last of Us? The music, the cutscenes, the performances in The Last of Us all play a part of a cohesive whole of a story. As for Pac-Man, is Pac-Man even art? It's mechanical, it's not emotional, there's no story, it's not art. Art is defined as expression through creative skill and imagination.
Well, there you go, creative skill, the magic word. The programmers of Pac-Man in the early days of video games certainly had a lot of creative skill there.
Sure, but that's not enough. The guy who invented the toaster was creative, but that doesn't make the toaster art, let alone great art.
Excuse me, let's pull up an image from the Museum of Modern Art, please. Thank you. You were saying?
I'm not gonna argue that. Modern art is weird.
It is, isn't it? Okay, debate aside, one time I was in a modern art museum and I literally saw a urinal as an exhibit. A urinal! Tell you what, but something tells me that us guys aren't feeling like we're entering the MoMA every time we go to the Disneyland men's room to drain the snake, am I right? Am I right? TMI? Too much? Too far? No pee jokes here? We're too mature for that sort of thing? Okay, fine, I'll see myself out.
Anyway, getting back to the actual debate here, I'm gonna bring it back to one of the classic Greek philosophers, my man, Aristotle. Aristotle said that art must have representational or expressive qualities. Representational art would be a portrait or a nature scene. Nothing in Pac-Man represents real objects, they're just icons.
Hello? Ghosts? A maze? Fruit? And besides, Pac-Man is abstract art. The Pac-Man maze is akin to shapes and color fields. Ever hear of Kandinsky? Rothko? Picasso? That's right, we're talking some artistic masterpieces up in this his house.
Nice name dropping, Matt. But abstract art is made to explore the craft. It's commenting on the relationship between shapes and color. It's designed to evoke emotions. Besides the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, what emotion does Pac-Man express? Fear of ghosts?
Hunger?
Pac-Man doesn't even have a metabolism. Pac-Man is a pure score chase. It is not art.
I'm sorry, but you sound like the late Roger Ebert. Ebert believed that games giving players choices meant that games could never express an artist's message. If you're going by that argument, Pac-Man limits player choices. Players can't do things that fundamentally change the tone or feel of the game. As such, by Ebert's definition, you're getting a pure artistic experience.
What matters is the story, and the narrative of The Last of Us starts and ends the same, no matter how you play. In that way, it's like a great movie or a novel.
Okay, so it's a work of art, like a great novel, where only the beginning and the ending matter and the middle is entirely of no consequence. Yeah, great piece of artwork there.
No, Matt, that is not what I'm saying. But let's bring it back to Ebert. I don't really buy his reasoning about games as art anyway. Who says that choice takes away from art? The available choices themselves can be a tool to create emotions in the player. It's hard to believe that games are necessarily less artistic as they become more interactive.
All this back and forth. Is it art? Is it not art? Is Matthew right? Yes, he is. It seems like there's no concrete definition of art itself, so we should probably look at the game's cultural significance. Pac-Man is a cultural touchstone. It's one of the first classic video games and remains that to this day. It will be played by our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren. Don't get me wrong, I like The Last of Us as much as the next guy, but will we be playing it generations from now? I just don't think so.
Look, I look forward to the day when I can share Pac-Man with my grandkids, but this has a lot more to say about the role of Pac-Man in history than its quality as art. Cultural relevance is interesting and all, but it doesn't make for better art. Look at the Atari game E.T. Some say that E.T. was so bad that it almost killed the home console game industry forever. So E.T. is significant, but that doesn't make it suck any less, and definitely doesn't make it art.
That's good. I like that. I totally agree. But the difference here is that Pac-Man doesn't suck. When we look at the blend of cultural and historical significance and quality, we're really talking about something that's called high art. To be high art, a work must achieve historical and cultural value. The release of Pac-Man in 1980 will always be remembered as a seminal moment in the history of video games, hence it being high art.
Yes, history. We're still talking about history. But what about the core themes? The Last of Us is about family and trust and loss. It's about personal sacrifice. These are larger human issues. They trigger a deeper intellectual and emotional response, the type we normally associate with great art. But I'm not sure I buy this distinction between high and popular art. Gamers often try to categorize games that way, as if their favorite artsy game like Journey and Gone Home are somehow in a different cultural category than popular games like Call of Duty. But it's entirely subjective and kind of elitist. If you like the game, you define it the way you want to.
So you're saying Call of Duty is just as artistic as Earthbound? Oh, my friend, I leave you to the mercy of the internet. Good luck. And while it's still my turn to talk, there's one other concept I got for you in regards to the artistic merit of The Last of Us. Ludonarrative dissonance. Yeah, bet you didn't see that one coming. The term was coined by game industry veteran Clint Hocking, who designed Far Cry 2, so definitely a guy with some street cred there. Ludonarrative dissonance is when the gameplay, or Ludo, clashes with the narrative of the game. A good example of this tonal disconnect is GTA 4, which earned criticism for ostensibly being about an immigrant who wanted to live the simple life, yet rewarded players for engaging in bank robberies and mayhem. Not exactly the most simple of lives, huh?
But The Last of Us doesn't have that dissonance. Naughty Dog used the game's mechanics to emphasize survival. While it borrowed a lot of mechanics from their more whimsical Uncharted series, they made a number of changes to create a feeling of desperation. For example, they made ammo scarce. They made it next to impossible to pull off easy kills to keep the conflict tense. that gave The Last of Us a hopeless feel that matched its post-apocalyptic narrative.
That's true, but there are still plenty of counterexamples. Spoiler warning for those of you who haven't played The Last of Us. During the game's winter chapter, Ellie, who's established as being a 14-year-old girl, mind you, kills dozens upon dozens of grown men. It's a sequence that's quite frankly absurd. The game also takes away player control at pivotal moments. In the end of the game, players are forced to kill a whole lot of people as Joel. Then, in a crucial moment that would seem to demand player choice, the game just triggers a non-interactive cutscene. Now contrast that with Pac-Man. Pac-Man is purity of games as an art form. There's never a moment in Pac-Man where the player feels divorced from what's being expressed on the screen.
Nice try, Matt, but that is hardly fair. Pac-Man lacks ludonarrative dissonance because it has no narrative. It's pure Ludo.
Ludo Chris! Whoa! But maybe that's what makes games like Pac-Man, and Tetris for that matter, such amazing works of art. They are perfect representations of pure gaming. That's why they're so timeless and endlessly enjoyable.
Look, I'm not gonna argue with that. I love both games, but once again, I'm gonna bring it back to the classics. As Tolstoy wrote, art is union among men, joining them together in the same feelings. Whether it be a score chase or a great story, the mere fact that gamers like us can come together and share common appreciation for masterpieces like The Last of Us and Pac-Man makes them both incredible works of art.
Okay, well, we'll let the internet be the judge.
Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, we have reached a deadlock. But before you cast your vote and settle this debate once and for all, an unexpected twist. Be sure to hop through this dimensional rift to see me and my opponent Jared here discuss the philosophy of the BioShock games. They're incredibly deep, and we nerd out over their deeper meaning about how much choice the player truly has and what that means about the franchise's philosophical underpinnings as a whole. It's a little bit funny, super nerdy, and a whole lot of fun because we're talking about BioShock. So show my opponent some love by hopping through this rift over to the Wisecrack channel. Tell him MattPat sent you through the dimensional rift. Obviously. Now, with reality nearly restored, all that remains is the end of this debate. The decision is now in your hands. Which game is the better work of art? Pac-Man or The Last of Us? Click on the person who argued it the best or click the links in the description to cast your vote and settle this debate once and for all.